Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. On this episode, guide and outdoor writer Matt Supinski returns to the show. Matt updates us on his fishing adventures in Michigan and shares his newest endeavor, Hallowed Waters Journal. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And a shout out to this episode's sponsor. This episode's sponsored by our friends at Norvise. Their motto is, tie better flies faster, and they produce the only vise that truly spins. If you tie articulated patterns, you owe it to yourself to check out their new shank jaws. Their first production run sold out in minutes, but Tim and Tyler have reloaded. To check out the new jaws and Norvise's other great products, head over to www.nor-vice.com today. Now, on to the interview. Well, Matt, welcome back to The Articulate Fly.
Thanks for having me, Marvin. It's always good to talk to my good Southern brother.
There you go. And, just curious, been talking to folks. How's your 2021 guide season treating you?
It's treating me always good. I'm doing the magazine right now, Hallowed Waters. So my guiding is, I'm still over busy. So I'm trying to do 2-3 jobs at one time. And it's really nice because a lot of my clients now are clients that I've had for a long time since I've been guiding for a while. And so I couldn't be busier and couldn't be happier.
Well, there you go. And of course, in the fly fishing world, summers are always challenging, but it seems like this year we got less water and warmer temperatures. What are you seeing up in Michigan?
Yeah, so we went from the worst drought in probably 150 years. I guess record-keeping drought, as they say. And then, like last week, Noah showed up and he gave me a signal to start building an ark. And it started raining, and I knew it. Like we go from extremes, typical climate change weather. We go from droughts to floods to droughts, heat waves to cold waves. It's just like tonight we're going to go down to 50 degrees. A couple of days ago it was 92 degrees. So there is no normal. And what's really interesting today is, everybody goes, well, what is it like normally in July? Dude, there is no more normal. So just FYI, there isn't any more normal. So if anybody calls me one more time and asks me about normal, I'll tell them I'm not normal. So how the hell could the weather be normal? So it's kind of tough. It's going to be kind of a big curveball for a lot of outfitters, I think. I know out west, the heat is devastating those people out there. I know that they've had tons of droughts in Montana and all over. It's going to be a whole new era, and it's not going to be the same era that we're used to. So we better start embracing climate change, and we better start. I know climate change is a dirty word down where you're from. But it's true. And I used to be one of those guys that doubted climate change. Now you can call me a tree hugger or whatever, whale saver. But when you work outside 365 days a year and then you fish outside and see the changes that I've seen in the last 10 years, it's pretty amazing. And there's no political slant to it. So it's pretty crazy. And there's no more normal. We're seeing a lot of fluctuations, especially our migratory fish. Our run timing is all over the place. So, the migratories are going to probably be hit the hardest because, they're so temperature dependent and diurnal time periods of sunlight, pineal gland development, egg sperm development in the bodies. Everything is going to be really interesting. And when you're seeing droughts in Iceland, you're seeing heat waves in Iceland and Scotland, and the volatility is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and I would imagine, too, that really cool weather really complicates these hatches that you're so famous for in the upper Midwest.
Yeah, so what's really crazy is that we lost this river since I've been guiding on it for 27 years. We've had the strongest Greyjake hatch. I named my operation for it. The Greyjake is a Sif Winoris mayfly. It's about a size 10. And it's like sort of like a brown drake, green drake, very similar to it. And it's this area, the Fair Marquette, the White River, Spring Creek, the Muskegon, the Rogue, has probably the heaviest gray drake hatch probably in the world, to be honest with you. I talked to a couple of entomologists, and the only other places that have them that deep specific are like the Baltic states, along the Baltic Sea, the rivers there, Norwegian, Swedish rivers. They like wooded areas, a lot of moisture in the soil, a lot of trees and sandy substructure on the banks. So this year last year we had probably the most incredible massive gray drake hatches that lasted for 4 weeks. So if you've ever seen the green drake hatch, like on Penns Creek at Poe Patty, for instance, you take that times about 1,000, and that's what we have with the gray drakes. And they're consistent every night and morning for 4 weeks, 5 weeks almost, to the point where the water turns to sawdust and you just can't fish for like weeks on end because there's too many mayflies. This year we lost them completely, so I didn't even see one gray drake this whole year, not even one. Where normally our whole lodge is covered with them, there was not one, because what happened, the drought was so specific. I wrote a blog in my Hallowed Waters page, the magazine journal page. I have a blog called The Ebb and Flow, which pretty much sums up what the weather's been doing to us. But so the bank dried up completely 10, 15 feet out from the bank, and the gray drake Cephalornis nymphs migrate towards the bank 2, 3 months before they hatch, and they migrated at normal time, and then the river dried up and it killed all the nymphs. So there was no hatch whatsoever, like just minuscule, like in small pockets. So this is what's going on now. I mean, it's like, I heard reports on the Delaware. The hatches were absolutely disgusting. They were terrible. A lot of what we've had built up for 100, 2, 3, 4, 500 years, a millennia, are going to be changing. And it is what it is. So it's going to be adjustment and trying to protect wild trout as much as we can, wild salmon and steelhead. And it's going to be a battle going forward.
Yeah, and that's even before we talk about, how COVID impacted your operations at Greyjake Lodge.
Yeah, well, same thing. We were shut down by law for like over 2 to 3 months. And then, COVID hasn't gone away. I mean, this new Delta variant is there. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this winter. We're going to go back to the dark plague days again. And it's crazy. So, yeah, between that, climate change, I keep looking at my shotgun case every day, and it's looking more tempting. But thank God, Jesus got my back. So, brother, I'm okay.
Well, there you go. And one of the things, because I know you were shut down, and I know you're refitting your lodge now. And so when folks come to fish with you, they can't stay with you. But one of the things you did kind of in your kind of COVID downtime was you launched Hallowed Waters Journal, and was really curious about, where did you get the idea for the magazine?
So I've been a magazine junkie probably since I was, 11, 12 years old, when I used to bag groceries. I used to go to paper drives. So going to a Catholic school, you always had paper drives. And there was always the guy that pulled up with the big, you targeted your clients when they pulled up by, that guy has a lot of Playboy and Hustler magazine. That guy has a lot of shooting magazines. That guy has a lot of fishing magazines. So there's one guy that always pulled up, and he always had boxes of fishing magazines. And I used to target him, and most of them were like Field and Stream and Outdoor Life, which were the standards. But then he had like old issues back to like the 70s of Fly Fisherman magazine. And I grew up reading those magazines, and they were like, those were my Bibles. And when I got my first article published back in, when was it? 88, I think, in Fly Fisherman, it was called Big Limestone Trout. I met a guy named Nick Lyons. I'm sure people have heard of his name. And he had a company, Lyons Press, which published all the major books on the market. And I met him at a trade show. I was the food and beverage director at the Sheraton Washington Hotel in Washington, D.C., and he was there for a book convention. And I was writing this article like forever and ever and ever because I was infatuated with writing, and I already got published right out of college in National Geographic magazine. Believe it or not, I had a little small essay in there, and I had a knack for writing. I really enjoyed it. And I had this article that I wanted to get published in a fly fishing magazine so I could be a quote celebrity fly fisherman. And I met him at the show, and I saw that he had a big suite up in the towers of the hotel, and I came up to his room with a tray, a room service cart with white linen and flowers and Dom Perignon and shrimp and lobster and crab on the shell and on the ice and all kinds of smoked salmon and caviar. And, of course, I could get whatever I want out of the kitchen, being a food and beverage director, and knocked on his door. And I said, Mr. Lyons, this is on behalf of the hotel. Welcome to the hotel. He's like, wait, what's going on here? And I said, oh, by the way, I just happen to have this manuscript in my pants here in my back pocket. Can you take a look at it, please, and give me some advice? I'd love to get it published. So he was so kind, and he sort of took me under his belt, and he edited this thing so much. And this is before the days of the computer and all that stuff and document. And so he sent it back to me the first time, and it looked like somebody just murdered a chicken, and there was just blood all over it from all his red ink. And I was like, oh my God, should I shoot myself now? And but he said, you got enough here for a book and at least 4 or 5 articles. So we whittled it down. He submitted it to John Randolph then at Fly Fisherman, and I got my first check in the mail for, what was it back then? $400 back then. It was like, whoa, man, $400. And I got published a couple issues later. And then he said, you're going to be a great writer, and just keep doing it because you like it. And I just kept doing it. So bottom line, long story short, those magazines had so much character, so much content, so much passion, so much heart and soul back then. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the last 10 years, they've gotten very limp. I mean, the content is kind of limp, and everything's kind of, sterile and commercialized and watered down. And so, me being the romantic Don Quixote, the nostalgic guy, I launched a magazine that sort of reminded me of those old issues in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And, frankly, a lot of people just don't subscribe to magazines anymore. I mean, I think I've written 289 magazine articles for all the major magazines, fly fishing magazines and other magazines, Outdoor Life and Field and Stream. And even up until the last couple of years, I'd write a big article or get a picture on a cover or something. I'd have something like that. And I'd say to people, did you see my article? And they're like, no, I don't subscribe to that magazine anymore. No, that magazine's really gone downhill so bad I don't even market it anymore. And I'm not naming any names because, it's just a general tendency across the board in the industry because the print costs so much money. And for these guys to make any money off print, you got to have tons of advertisement. You got to keep content down to a minimum. You have to keep your pages down to a minimum. So magazines that were once 150, 180 pages are now 50, 60, 70 pages max. And 90% of the content is advertising. So it's kind of disheartening. I said, I'm going to launch a magazine that's going to have a whole experience, in-depth, technical, artistic, science, history, art, lore, every art form of fly fishing, but totally focused on my 3 loves, trout, salmon, and steelhead, and all over the world. My following all over the world is crazy right now. I mean, Europe and all over the place is really embracing Hallowed waters in a big way. And we've had 3 issues. Our 4th issue comes out this fall, but the reception has been over the moon. I got a tremendous review in Trout Magazine by good guy Kurt Dieter, who's a wonderful man and passionate brown trout fisherman. And it's really something I love to do. I really love to write. Some people write to get published and to book trips and to do things of that nature and be a celebrity. I do it because I just sincerely wake up every day and love to write 3,000 words. And that's why I blog. I started a podcast. I don't know if you've listened to it. But yeah, that's what I love to do. And if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, there you go. And so where did the name for the journal come from?
I just took something. I'm a big nostalgic guy. And to me, every river's sacred. Every river is hallowed. Every stream is precious. And my magazine's all about the fish, and it's all about the waters. And the fly fishing art form is just it's just sort of a means, The end is the fish and the water and the beauty of it, and that's what I'm trying to capture. I'm trying to capture beautiful photography, very, very in-depth prose, and all that introspective analysis. Not only the technical part of fly fishing, the beauty of the fly and the art form, but everything else that goes with it, and even wild foraging for wild mushrooms and cooking and the other one of my passions. And I think that if you love that spectrum of it and worship every fish and don't treat them like another ticker tape number, and I think whether you're fishing a stream in downtown Detroit or you're fishing a stream in the Kola Peninsula off of the Arctic Circle or in Iceland, they're hollowed waters because they have a trout in it. And if a trout is just swimming in it, it's a damn hollowed water. And I just published a blog about these poor Czech Republic brown trout are addicted to crystal methamphetamines. I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, and these streams that the streams that run right through cities like the Bow River in Calgary, like a lot of these rivers that run right through Georgia. I mean, all the stuff that we're pumping into our daily refuse of sanitation, disposal toilets, eventually get to the water, and they found out that that has influence on the way the fish swim, etc. So the bottom line is, if we respect the water, if we respect the fish, we'll have longevity in fly fishing forever, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. And, kind of doing the research for this interview, my understanding is that the Hallowed Waters journal is rooted really in your relationships with your writing and fishing mentors. And you mentioned the relationship you developed with Nick Lyons, but who are some of the other folks that mentored you with your writing or your fishing?
Yeah, so I was really, really fortunate. And it was just like probably my uncle in Poland was my biggest, when I lived on the farm, between the ages of 8 and 11 years old, in a farm off the Baltic Sea in Poland. And we had a beautiful trout stream that ran through it called the Wieprzna River. And it was like a Spring Creek River style that had wild brown trout. And then it had runs of sea run browns and Atlantic salmon, which were kind of becoming endangered and extinct at that point because of the communist rule at that point. But he was a big mentor because he was a purist, I'd say. He was a game warden, and he had German and Czechoslovakian shotguns, which were like the creme de la creme at that time, because he did a lot of hunting. He had German short hairs. But he also had hardy bamboo rods and a hardy spey rod. And all his flies were hardy, wheatly, right cut out of that tradition. So the first patterns I really learned a lot were the iron blues and the pale wateries and the cleaner waters and all those old traditional English patterns. So he was a big mentor to me because I lived working on a farm. I lived to go fishing on the river that ran through our farm. And then when I started to get into the hotel industry, I was living in Washington, D.C., and I fished Pennsylvania every weekend, for probably 10 years, 11 years. And people that mentored me big time were, I ran into a guy named Vince Marinero, who wrote In the Ring of the Rise and Dry Fly Code, and I met him one day on the retort. He's a really curmudgeon-y, grumpy guy. He just hated me and hated everybody. Sounds like me some days, but I'm praying to not do that. And by the way, and he was just like, he just really didn't want me around. But I thought, the best way to get into somebody's pocket, as they say, or in other way of putting it when men and women have a relationship, but well, I don't know what to say. But anyways, bottom line is, I wanted to get in his pants, in his pockets, to be his little guy in his pocket. There's an old thing in the hotel industry, the man in the pocket. You always have to have a man in the pocket. And so I said, he's got to have a weak spot. And so I found out he had a weak spot. He loves Italian wine. He's an Italian guy. He loves smoked salmon. And so I brought him some like $300-400 bottle of wine and some Scottish smoked salmon from the hotel. And I sort of like baited him. I was baiting him. And he's like, wow, where'd you get that? I'm like, it's all yours. If you could be nice to me and show me what you're doing. And so I sort of bought my mentorship with him because he didn't like anybody. And then he invited me to his place and showed me his jackets and his bamboo rod making. And then all of a sudden, he's like the nicest guy on the planet, and then the poor guy died from cancer and it was kind of tough. And then Ed Shank, the great Ed Shank, I met him so many times at Yellow Breeches and the Allenbury and Bonnie Spring and Bonnie Brook Road on the Fort, and got to know each other over the years. I fished with him in Quebec for Atlantic salmon, and he's just the nicest guy on the planet. He did so many nice compliments to my selectivity book and my Nexus book, and Ed passed away just recently in the last couple of years, and so those were big influences in my life. And then when I moved to Michigan, when I did my last hotel stint, the guy that was fishing the river that I settled on was a famous guy named Carl Richards, who wrote Selected Trout with Swisher and Richards. And we got to fish the river, but we got to fish the caddis hatches. He was in the process of writing Super Caddis Hatches and his other caddis works. And we're inventing a lot of the ground zero caddis. And so I talk a lot about caddis in Hallowed Waters magazine. And, there was a lot of fundamental groundwork, stuff that was going on there. So with him, and then, I got to know Ernie Schliebert quite a bit. And then I found out that Carl Richards went to Ohio State and Ernie Schliebert went to Ohio State. And I went to Ohio State. And it was kind of a cool, I shouldn't say that very loud because I'm in Michigan. So I got to watch my car windows for saying stuff like that. But I had these great mentors, and then we had a summer home in the Catskills, so I got to meet Lee Wolf, and I got to fish with Art Lee, who are my two Atlantic salmon gurus. Life is nothing but a journey of mentorship and being grateful for people that have showed you the way.
That's a really special set of folks you've talked about. It's really kind of from that period in time, kind of the who's who in fly fishing. Do you think younger anglers have this similar type of mentorship opportunities today?
I don't think so, because basically their mentorship is YouTube and a lot of things where it's such a technology-driven era that we live in. So their mentorship is that guy right on that big screen, and that person, and there's so many great YouTube guys out there. Which is sort of similar mentorship, to be honest with you. They're going to watch, Dave Jensen's YouTubes and Kelly Gallup's YouTubes and all these great YouTubes out there and Todd Moen. And that's just cool stuff. And I think it makes mentoring a lot easier. There's not a personal relationship really there, but mentoring comes in a lot of different forms and fashions. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just allows mentorship to be more broad range. Whereas in my situation, it was just running into them just because of geographical circumstance. But I can't emphasize enough for a younger generation to read as much as you can. There's so many great blogs out there today. There's so many great online publications. Reading is the heart and soul of the art form. It's not really a sport. I think sometimes we treat our tri-fly fishing as another one of these action sports. It's like mountain climbing or biking, or let's just grab a fly rod and whack it around the air. I just watched Gordon Ramsay's Uncharted. Have you seen that yet, Martin, on National Geographic Wild?
I have not yet.
So it's a great series. I like Gordon Ramsay. I like cooking shows. And he came out this. He started when I worshipped Anthony Bourdain. By the way, Anthony Bourdain was. I watched him every episode probably 10 times. He was crazy. He was cocky. He was aloof. He was fun. All his no reservations and all his stuff that he did was the creme de la creme. The poor guy, when he committed suicide, I was devastated. And I think Gordon found that niche and he took it to the next level. And he's got incredible cinematography. And he's now going to these, like, I just saw one. By the way, I just saw him last Sunday. He was in Asheville, North Carolina. And he just did one. You got to go to National Geographic Wild and see his episode that he did in North Carolina. My God, that was the most beautiful photography of these wild Smoky Mountain rivers that he was on. It was called the Great Smoky Mountains. And he met up with all these chefs. And he did foraging for wild mushrooms. He did crawfish fishing. He did trout fishing. I think probably looked like the Davidson River or somewhere. But so what he's doing, he's going into these wild places and he's cooking outside. And he did all this recorded over COVID. So because everything was done outside. So he did whitewater rafting. He did, all kinds of snorkeling for crawfish. It was just like really cool. But that kind of stuff inspired me. I don't even know what I was talking about here. Where was I talking about? I got carried away here.
We were talking about mentoring.
Mentoring, yeah. So here we go. So here's a guy like that has the ability, and he took what Anthony Bourdain, who was a great mentor, of so many people, and now he's taking it to the next level. And so, yeah, these are all mentoring. But, to have personal mentorship is so rare today. And if you do find it, from your Trout Unlimited Club, your Federation Club, your Fly Fishing Museum, whatever, take a grab onto it and nurture it if you can for your young ones, because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, shifting gears a little bit to kind of talk a little bit more about the magazine, tell us a little bit about the format for Hallowed Waters Journal.
Yeah, so, it's still a mom and pop magazine. I edit and publish it. My wife is the design editor and lays it out, Lori. She does a fantastic job. In 1 year, we've really taken that magazine up and knocked it up. And I think a lot of it's because I've had so much exposure to magazines over the years, being departmental editors and regional editors and things like that. But so the format is basically, my topic is trout, salmon, and steelhead, the passion and the journey. And we try to stick on a seasonal level. The winter issue was packed with winter stuff. But basically like 4 main features that touch on trout, salmon, steelhead. The spring issue was a 265-page mega issue because it was a spring-summer issue, and it was about mayflies. It was devotion to mayflies. Let's face it, when we started fly fishing, it's about matching a fly that's on the water. You see a trout or a smallmouth or whatever come up and grab your fly, or bluegill, and that was the art form that started in 1490 with Dom Juliana and back to England. So I try to stay seasonal. I try to have 4 big main features, and Christ, we got a little carried away. You're not going to see as much content because I think I'd be dead if I had to do what I had to do for the spring issue. But, some of our pieces were 25,000 words, so they were like a book in themselves. But I have 4 major pieces trying to center on what's going to be happening for that season in both trout and salmon world and the migratory world. And then I have 12 individual departmental columns from the rise forms to Chasing Sawyer's Pheasant-tail nymphing, which is about nymphing, and I do everything from Euro nymphing to traditional European nymphing to English nymphing. And then I have a streamer meat locker piece. I have an ecology piece about the science. I interview biologists and scientists. I have an archival historian. I use, museums and guys in the Catskills that research old, the foundation of American fly fishing. I have pieces on the art of the fly. I have pieces on arts and books. Artists, I just featured, A.D. Maddox in the last issue. She has a beautiful art gallery. She just opened up in Livingston, Montana. And, gear, I have the Fedora Flea Flicker gear section. I'm going to be doing a spay review. I just did a feature on Spinoza Rod Building Company, a bamboo rod building company out of New England. So, yeah, it's very diversified. And I have the Epicurean Forager, which is my culinary section, where I feature my recipes in there. And spring issue is the devotion to Atlantic salmon and some salmon issues. recipes and promoting sustainable, smart aquaculture, smart eco-friendly aquaculture. So we're trying to make a lot of statements, and it's nice because when you get the magazine, there's something in there for you. If you're just a dirty nympher, or you're just a pure dry fly guy, or you're just a pure spay guy, or you're just a pure streamer meat guy, there's always going to be something in there for you. And whereas a lot of the magazines, if you don't like these 3 or 4 destinations, then you're shit out of luck. And so I'm trying to keep it your backyard focused, because COVID said, hey, let's fish our backyard because we ain't going to be hopping on a plane anywhere soon. So I'm trying to keep it backyard focused, but then I have a lot of, European, South American, Canadian, a lot of Canadian influence. I did live in Canada for a while as a little boy. So I lived in the United States, Canada, and Poland before the time I was 12 years old. So I had a lot of international exposure before everything. But yeah, it's a pretty cool gig. The podcast is going to be a hoot. I just recorded the first episode with Tommy Lynch, the famous mousing streamer guy, and had a blast with that one. And I'm doing a 10-part series called Big Brown Trout Hunters. And Tom Rosenbauer said he's going to do one with me, but we're going to be small brown trout hunters. So we're going to be older guys that like small brown trout, like 8 to 10 inches. So it's going to be called Big Reward Trout, Smaller Packages or something like that, So we're having fun. It's about having fun and spreading the passion and the joy.
Got it. And where can folks find the podcast?
They can find it at Spotify podcast. Just go to podcast.com, Hallowed Waters Podcast, and you'll see it. Just Google it, and then I think it's all over the guy who designed it for us has it spread out on the other things, but most people are listening to it on Spotify right now. It's on Anchor.fm, so Hallowed Waters is found there. Yep.
Yeah, I'll drop a link to that. Yeah, Anchor is Spotify's podcasting brand. And, back to the magazine for a minute, I, noticed that you have some advertising, but you really have a subscription-based business model, correct?
Yeah, and we're modifying everything at this point because we're going as we're learning as we play, and so yeah, we're going into both frontiers, and we're also going to print also. So we are now in the process of converting to print at the same time, going through maybe Amazon or going through other venues. But the biggest thing is people like digital, but there's so many old school dudes, the old timers, that really want paper in their hands. And that's a huge segment of the market, man. You go to fly fishing shows, you don't see a lot of guys running around in Olympic suits at these things. There's a lot of old timer dudes, and these guys want print form. So my biggest problem is I love your concept, but I ain't going to read that crap because it's all on digital, damn it. So I want something in my hands so I can pour a bourbon at night and sit and smoke my pipe. And I'm like, I hear you. The most thing you want to do is listen to people. And my goal, I'm a Swanson Foods. I want to get my Swanson TV dinner in every single household in the United States. So if you got a microwave, if you got a stove, if you have an oven, damn it, I'm going to make sure you got a chance to get my Swanson TV dinner in your house, which my Swanson TV dinner is Hallowed Waters Journal. If you're a fly fisherman, you should have it. And so, yeah, we're going to probably do some limited edition printing involved and some commemorative hard copies, because technically if I go print a 264-page magazine with 600 color images, that's a book, man. And so we're going to do a lot of that also. So we're in the process of doing everything.
Well, interesting. And so how much is your digital subscription a year, just so folks have an idea?
Yeah, it's $19.95 for 4 issues, and comes out quarterly, comes out every 3 months. And seriously, the length of the magazine is probably going to take you 3 months to read it by the time you get to the next magazine. So it's I think the price value is there. We're not making any money at this point, but we're having fun, and hopefully we're gonna take it to the next level where it will become a household name.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because you mentioned earlier that the last issue was weighed in at a little bit over 260 pages, and you know that that's not sustainable. So what is going to be kind of the size target for future issues of the journal?
Yeah, I think 140 pages. I'm using the old fly fisherman model as my standard because that's what they used to be in the old days. And Ross at Fly Fisherman does a phenomenal job. He's still one of the super guys out there. I mean, he does incredible work, and Fly Fisherman is always dear to my soul. But I used to like American Angler a lot, Fly Rod and Reel. Eastern Fly Fishing does a great job. Atlantic Salmon Federation Journal. There used to be a magazine called Wild Salmon and Steelhead, which I've written for in the past. Fly Fishing Journal, published out west. I mean, damn, there were so many great magazines, but a lot of them are falling by the wayside these days. And so we're going to be adjusting as we go. The nice thing about digital format is I can insert videos in there, which are so cool. I could do real. So the beauty of 3-month publications and lifetime publications is that they're real time. And the problem with a lot of books today is you sign a contract, 2 years later you submit a draft, and 4 years later you get your first run, and then by the time books are published today, something takes 6-7 years to publish. And they're old news, man, because fly patterns are changing every day. The ecology is changing every day. Rivers are changing every day. The fish evolution is changing every day. We are in such a drastic mode of ecological evolutionary change at a rapid pace with climate change. Everything's going to change a lot from year to year, from month to month, week to week. So the nice thing about being contemporary and being up to speed all the time and publishing book quality information is you have the ability to put something out in 3 months, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the great benefit of digital, right? I mean, it's this phenomenal delivery system if you have the right stuff to deliver.
Exactly. And what else is really cool is the ability to blog and podcast to support the institution. So the institution is Hallowed Waters Journal, the Hallowed Waters podcast, and my Ebb and Flow Hallowed Waters blog, which I'm doing at least 2 or 3 a week. And they're pretty substantial blogs. If you read them, they're storytelling with some seriously cool fly patterns and some serious, deep tactical info in those. If you put all 3 together, it's a full-time job. And at this point, I'm probably making 3 cents an hour. I could be making a shitload more money, flipping burgers at Burger King. But it's the passion and the love, and I do a few trips every week. And it's finding that complete picture. Because if I had to sit by a computer all day like I did for the spring issue, I thought I was going to lose my mind. And that therapist of mine kept calling me back and saying, "You're not done with your therapy yet. Still got a couple more treatments." So it was getting crazy. But it's really important to get out. And I think a lot of publishers and editors don't spend enough time outside. And so with the guiding that I do for my select clients and the ability to do this, I think it's a nice retirement job. That now that I hit the hallowed waters, I'm going down that hallowed river in my early mid 60s. It's a nice gig to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember, the first time I fished with you, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, you were cranking 200 days plus on the water. Yeah,
that was insanity, and it doesn't give you any substance to your mental state. And but you were just with me a couple of weeks ago. My mental state has not changed very much. You're probably writing a whole blog on that one, or a book at that point. So it's called refining things, and that's where I'm at, the refinement stage at this point.
Yeah, and so beginning of July, I know you started working on the fall issue, and when do you expect it to come out, and kind of do you have a rough idea of what people should expect to see?
Yeah, so we're going to look at October 15th is our normal fall issue time, and it's going to be a spay and fall trout issue. So I do a lot of spay fishing, a lot of swinging flies for salmon and steelhead. So we're going to have a lot of that in there. We're also going to be doing some fall trout, fall autumn hatches. Just across the board, basically migratory fish. So all trout fishermen become salmon and steelhead fishermen. It just seems to be that way. And they all have this addiction for it. So if you cast a fly for trout, you're usually probably going to cast a fly for a salmon or steelhead. So everybody's thoughts turn. So, Lake Erie, steelhead, Lake Ontario, British Columbia, Washington State. Hopefully it'll cool off by then. Those poor guys got just destroyed this summer. So yeah, it's going to be about that. Plus, fall's a great time to trout fish. It's one of my favorite times. Blueing olive hatches and fall status hatches and midges. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm going to try to keep, as other magazines do, they try to keep their content seasonal. I'm going to try to keep it seasonal, but just with one extra step, and go the extra mile into really getting down and dirty, skinny and seasonal and technical and, trying to touch on concepts most people haven't touched on.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you spend about 3 months putting together each issue, and then all the readers spend 3 months reading that issue while you're making the next one. And I know it's you and Lori, but tell folks a little bit about kind of the process of, how the sausage is made.
How the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Sausage?
Yeah. Well, in terms of you're the copy editor, Lori does the layout.
Yeah. Okay. That's sausage. I thought you meant my smoked sausage.
No, not that.
No, I'm never going to tell anybody how I make my smoked sausage because that's a family secret. So I start laying out the magazine. I start writing the content, the core of the magazine, of the article. And then I humbly ask these great people that their expertise in that area to contribute their thoughts on that concept. And I try to synthesize all that together with the fly patterns and the destination concepts that these articles entail. And then I have featured writers in each of the columns that feature their art form, their craft. And then Lori, as we go along, starts to lay it out and put the photography together. And then, then we edit, then we do multiple editing, and then we do layout design. And then at the end, we add fly patterns to fly plates to the articles. And then we shit our pants and panic and wet the bed and wait for the 15th to get it out. And then we just collapse and it's a very harrowing experience. Let's put it this way. But we managed to pull it off, and the reception has been through the roof. So I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and I think you're using FlipSnack is the platform you're using to deliver the digital issues.
Yeah, FlipSnack has been, it's really user-friendly to a certain degree. Some people hate it. Some people love it. We don't know what we're going to do for season 2. We're still looking at a couple other different options. We might do it ourselves. We don't know yet. This is all so new to us. I look at all these great online publications like Covey Run and all these guys have been around for 12 years, 14 years. I'm the new kid on the block, man. I'm still walking around in diapers and wetting the bed, man. I don't even know what the heck's going on here. So we pulled off a pretty glitzy and pretty cred magazine in less than a year. I'm still shocked. I'm still ready for the walls to come tumbling down. But what I think shows in the magazine is the enthusiasm and passion that the people that put it together have for it, including all the special people that have been so kind to contribute. And my passion ain't going away anywhere nearly soon. So you could just see the magazines that are just laboring to try to get content out, and the books that are laboring to get content out. And then you can see the ones that there's Jesus flowing through that magazine, brother, and you better love it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is there any other writing or guiding news you want to share with our listeners before I let you hop this evening?
No, I think if you really want to get a feel for the magazine, go to Hallowed Waters, go to the Ebb and Flow blog and learn a lot about that there. And then, I think then the podcasts are going to be a hoot. The first one I did with Tommy was so much fun. And I'm going to try to get personalities that are just going to keep you hopping and skipping the whole time. And we're not politically correct at all. We're going to say all kinds of crazy stuff. And, unfiltered is when you really let it out. And that's when the creativity comes out, when you're unfiltered and unplugged and unfiltered. And so, we're going to have a good time. But it's about serious fishing. It's about, we take it to the extreme level, and that's where our goal is.
Got it. And, for the podcast, you're going to do, you're going to regularly put out series, but they're going to be maybe a little bit lumpy in kind of how they come out.
Yeah. So we're going to do, a series, but then in between, I just did a podcast about Hemingway, about Ernest Hemingway, who spent so much time in northern Michigan with a cool guy up in northern Michigan that has researched a lot about him and things of that nature. And, we're going to have different alerts. I'm going to have interview guys in Iceland and Russia and all my favorite places that I like to go. And it's going to be all over the map. It's going to be pretty cool. And I've, probably have a couple chefs on it that like to fly fish. So celebrity chefs, people that I've guided. It's going to be mixed up, and there's always going to be something new and exciting. So we're not enough hours in the day, brother. It's just it's constant.
Yeah, and I'll drop show notes to the journal and the podcast.
That'd be great. And also, it's really important for all my readers and to share the information as much as you can. So blogs and podcasts are only as good as people reading them and listening to them. And I do a lot on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please share them as much as you got. Retweet them, because everything today is Google search engine. I'm an old white Polish dude trying to figure out this whole Google gig, and there's dudes that have went to school and gotten degrees in this stuff. So I'm driving an old beat up Volkswagen bus at this point, and I need to get up to Lamborghini speed. So share, and keep sharing.
Yeah. And to talk about old school, you have quite a few books, and I think the ones that jump out at me are Steelhead Dreams, and I know that's been published in a couple of editions, and then Nexus and Selectivity. Where's a good place for folks to track down your old school writing?
Amazon. Amazon and eBay is places to go. Amazon is the book market today. It just is what it is. Publishers rely 99% on Amazon today, and Amazon's going to take over the world, I think, at this point. So we're all going to be wearing Amazon on our foreheads pretty soon. But fly shops don't like to carry books because it takes up space. When I talked to Tom Rosenbauer said corporate stores won't even stock his books because it takes up space. It's about space marketing, and books take up space. People don't want to carry books because nobody reads them, according to a lot of people. So Amazon always has them. eBay, I saw Steelhead Dreams go for like $1,200 or $1,800 the other day on eBay because it's out of print. So there's still places where you can get really good books. eBay, and there's so many really great used book dealerships online. So you could find a lot of really good deals. I shop those used book stores online, and there's so many great things you can find on there. So now's the time to buy books. Like, now's the time not to buy a new car because there aren't no new cars. Everything's used today. But now's the time to buy books because you could find so many great, first edition Selective Trouts and In the Ring of the Rise and stuff. So go back but there's just read. Spend more time reading. You'll be so much a better fly fisherman.
Yep, and I've got links to all of your books that are still in circulation in the show notes and on the website, and I'll link to those too for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And before I let you go, you have a lodge and an outfitting business. Do you want to tell folks about how to learn more about Greyjake Lodge and Outfitters? Yeah,
so just go to greyjake.com. We're in the process of revamping our website because I put so much attention into my books and the magazine, and now the lone pony is in my website. It's like, if you want to see the Smithsonian Institute of websites, you just go to greyjake.com and you might see Darwin pop up over there because it's kind of antiquated, but it still has tons of information, and it's where you go. So we're gonna revamp it and make it more simpler because you could spend days on my website. But yeah, it covers everything we do: trout, salmon, steelhead, Atlantic salmon, Pacific salmon, fall steelhead, summer steelhead, winter steelhead, little tiny streams, big tailwaters. We do trips to destinations. I I'm going to start my Nexus tours next year, hopefully, if there's no more COVID outbreaks. And, I did one to Iceland last summer just before COVID, and I was going to do one at Tierra del Fuego, and I was going to do one to Quebec, and I was going to do one to Russia, but they all got derailed. And we're gonna still do it and keep having fun.
Yeah, there you go. And if folks could only pick one digital destination to follow your adventures, where should they go?
So Hallowed Waters is on Instagram, and Hallowed Waters is on Facebook also, and Hallowed Waters is on Twitter. So if you go to all three, you could get my blogs, you get all the video stuff and things I do there. But yeah, I post. When I post on one, I usually post on all because some people like one more than the other. I was out this morning on that little creek I took you to, by the way, and it was crazy this morning. I mean, there was a trico hatch from hell. We just had tons of rain, and every pool it was gaga. I mean, there were 14, 15 inches rising that I haven't seen in weeks on that creek. So you should have been here this morning, Marvin.
With my floating Rapala, right?
With your floating Rapala. I didn't see any floating Rapalas today.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, listen, Matt, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me and re-recording this. As I mentioned to you before, it's like out of 350 pieces of content, the first time we did this, for some reason, we sounded like we were talking to each other in the last flight scene in Star Wars before they blew up the Death Star.
Well, it's cursed because, our lodge, by the way, is built on an ancient Indian burial ground. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so when we built it, we had this college student show up here one day, and he says, "Hey, do you mind if I dig around your backyard?" I go, "What do you mean? You looking for dead bodies or something?" And he says, "No, I have these old maps, these old Hopewell Indians and Chippewa Indian, Iroquois Indian, and I have maps where like all these burial grounds are along the Muskegon River, and in your backyard, in this area, on this road, you could see these mounds that were set up by the geographical regions." And he started digging at the end of our driveway, and we've seen these big humps there. We didn't know what they were. They looked like underground, I don't know what you call them, catacombs or something. They were just like perfectly shaped. And then he said, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of burials in there." He said, there's a lot of graves in there, and I found hatchets, and I found all kinds of relics, and so we got an Indian burial ground here, so maybe we're cursed. Let's hope not.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, Matt, I really appreciate it. Thanks again, and I hope you continue to have productive trico hatches this summer.
Wonderful. Thanks, Marvin. Great talking to you, and thank you so much.
Take care. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Again, if you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. And don't forget to head on over to www.nor-vice.com to check out all the great Nor Vice products. Tight lines, everybody.